Welcome back, Nerd Herders. It is Dynasty lunch break time. Yes, I am here, Garrett Price, bringing you all the glad tidings that come with being 1 week away from the NFL season. That's right. And we've got legitimate college football on tonight. Like some very good, very entertaining games. Some big time teams and programs playing tonight, Thursday night, August 29th. We've got games tomorrow. We've got games Saturday. We've got games Sunday. All kinds of college action all weekend long, leading us into the regular season, which, of course, that's what we care about so much. So we can finally get the fantasy football season going. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Lots of fun things planned for today. First of all, just a little side note. Dynasty Nerds has always had an account, but I have not always had a TikTok account. And so I am now officially on TikTok. I just actually posted my first TikTok. That's part of the reason I was a minute late. I posted my first TikTok ever. So go ahead and check that out. Doing the blind quarterback rankings, which I'll leave it for you to see how it went. It was entertaining. We'll say that. It was definitely entertaining. So appreciate you guys tuning in here. We also have the big reveal of a new feature. And if you've been watching this show, this would have been the only show you probably would have heard it on. Maybe we mentioned it slightly on the Dynasty Nerds podcast. I don't remember for sure if we did or not. But big reveal. A new feature for the Nerd Herders. And in fact, you'll get to see it today. It won't be a Nerd Herd exclusive today, just because you'll get to see it. But it's gonna be pretty awesome. And I'm gonna get to share that with you guys here today. And then, of course, always I will be more than happy to answer any trade questions, any questions going into the season, whatever you guys want to know. I like to make this one big conversation between myself and all the homies out there. So love you guys. Appreciate you guys hanging out here today. Steven, what's up, buddy? How's it going, man? I'm glad that you were able to make it on live today. Able to hang out with us. And I think you're a nerd herder, if I remember correctly. And so that means this new feature that I'm going to be showing, this is going to be right up your alley. It's going to be pretty cool. And in fact, it's even live. It's already live on the page. So we will definitely be talking about that. And you can even go see it yourself if you want to. What's up? Drop the mic. How's it going, man? Mike, good to see you. Got to hang out with you a little bit in good old Canton, Ohio, about a little less than a month ago now. So good to have you in here, buddy. So yeah, go ahead, drop any questions that you have in the chat. I have a few things that I want to discuss, and obviously the biggest of those things is that new feature that I'm sure a lot of people are going to be very excited about. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes though. I want everyone to have time to get in here. Mason, what's good, Mason? Good to see you. I got to remember I can always show these. Steven saying what's up. Drop the mics here. Mason's here. So lots of people here watching on YouTube. Let's do a little test here. We did this one other time. If you are watching on YouTube, just say hi from YouTube. If you are watching on Twitter, say hi from Twitter. Just say hi. That's all you got to do. Say hi from Twitter. In fact, you wouldn't even necessarily need to say that. There's a little icon for me that pops up showing where you're at. But everyone else might not know. So, Powerfold saying, need an unbiased opinion on Noah Brown. I'm a Texans season ticket holder and have seen a lot of him. Seen quite a bit, and I think highly of him. Could I be seeing him become a number 2 wide receiver? Am I crazy? Ooh. Wide receiver 2 might be a little bit lofty, although he's very, very talented. It's a consistency thing with him. Because the raw talent, the raw ability is absolutely there. It's there. But the issue has been the consistency for him. So that's what we're still kind of waiting on to see. Can he consistently be that kind of player? That's what we're not sure yet. Oh, you mean a team's number 2 wide receiver? I think still the same thing holds true. Is there enough talent for him to? Yes. Can he consistently do it? That's the question. That's the question. But talent-wise, I think he has enough talent to be able to do that. Brandon, Charles, Mason, Sedated Fork, a lot of YouTubers. A lot of YouTubers here. That's what I always thought. See, Twitter gets you the numbers. Twitter will get you the numbers. But the YouTubers, if you're here on YouTube, you're serious about this. Like, you're not just popping in, popping out. Twitter's going to get you those numbers. But YouTube's the one where the real consistent homies are. So, let's see. Do we want to do it already? I feel like it's too early, but I don't want to make you guys wait to show this feature. Josh, what's good, homie? You know what? Early bird gets the worm. Let's not wait. Let's go ahead and show you this brand new feature that we just added specifically for the Nerd Herder. So let me get these separate tabs open here. I want to make sure that I don't lose my spot here. Let's go over to the Nerd Herd. And we're going to the Nerd Score. And you're like, Garrett, you said Nerd Score doesn't change. It doesn't. But we might have added a little something to it. Might have added a little something to it. So, if you go to the Nerd Score page, if you're a Nerd Herd member, you can do that right now. If not, I'm going to share my screen so you guys can all watch along with me. And let's see, where is it at? Here we go. Share. Okay. All right. So here is the Nerd Score page if you've never seen it before. By the way, as you can see, 20% off if you use code 2024 season. So that means you can get a whole year for 20% off if you sign up before the season starts. So if you're not a Nerd Herd member and you're watching this and you're like, I want all of these awesome tools, you can go in and get it. So let's go to 2024. And as you can see, we have our Nerd Score tab right here. This is how we ranked. Jared and I, we're the ones that do the Nerd Score. This is how we ranked each and every player just simply based on their tape. Simply based on their tape. That's it. No other factors. But we've added Nerd Score Plus. And as you can see, sometimes it shifts a little bit where people were. So you can see our Nerd Score Plus would have had Ladd McConkey as our fourth receiver, or our Nerd Score would have had Ladd McConkey as our fourth receiver. But now Nerd Score Plus gives Xavier Worthy the nod to be our wide receiver 4. So it is something that we've said before. You can't use the Nerd Score as just a pure rankings. It's just meant to be how are they on raw talent and ability. Nerd Score Plus is going to take it up. So you add in the film grade, which is still the main core of the score, but it adds in more context. Draft capital, landing spot, college production, and competition level. So all of these things, actually, I thought there was one more factor too. Draft capital, landing spot, college production, competition level. What was, I feel like there was oh no, Nerd Score was the 5th one. Okay. So that was the 5th one. I'm tricking myself here. So now it changes the order, and they got different scores. Some much higher than what we gave them. You know, like Jalen Polk's a great example. We didn't rank him super high, but he had really good draft capital, went to a good school that there was high competition level. So like those types of things are going to raise him up the draft board. But on the flip side, we actually didn't even rank Troy Franklin very high, but he still dropped anyway. Malik Washington, we ranked fairly high as far as Nerd Score goes, but he didn't get that draft capital, even though he had a good college production score. He also went to a fairly crowded place. So the odds of becoming a wide receiver 1 on his team, fairly low. So that's why he dropped a little bit. So you can see that this will give you a more full picture of how a player should potentially be ranked. Same thing for a running back. We did it with running back as well. So these guys moved up and down, like Marshawn Lloyd dropped below Trey Benson. Once we had that added in, Jalen Wright stayed almost identical to where he was at, and these other players moved up and down based on that. But if you want to see how it did historically, you can go back to previous years. We backfilled in all of the previous seasons. So this then kind of helps you figure out who would have been higher, who would have been lower, all of that kind of stuff. So you can see based on here, like Jackson Smith and Jigba, his nerd score plus was a little bit higher. Zay Flowers. Jordan Addison would have been above Zay Flowers. Tank Dell would have been our wide receiver 4 in the class. Although I think he was tied for our wide receiver 4 anyway. So Quentin Johnston would have moved up. But the nerd score kind of helped say, like, maybe he's not as good as draft capital and production and all those things would say. It helped move up Jaden Reed, which we didn't have high enough. So different things like that really kind of helped different players that were boosted. And, of course, the one that we're going to regret forever, Justin Jefferson. We had him crazy low. It was our first year trying to do it. He moved up quite a bit based on production, draft capital, etc. So you can have a fun time. Go in, look at all of those things for the Nerd Herd. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. All right, let's get back to some of the questions here. I'll show this again towards the end. We can maybe take a look at it again then. And, yeah, have fun with it for people that came in late. All right, Sedated Fork, what is your Kansas City wide receiver prognostication for 2024? Is there any wide receiver worth rostering besides Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy? I think, honestly, as much as it's frustrating, Rashee Rice might still be the number 1 wide receiver this season for them. Doesn't look like he's going to miss any time. He's still going to be heavily involved. I think it'll be close between him and Worthy, who the top dog is, but I would absolutely say Rice is very much so worth rostering. The Dynasty Dan says, how we doing, GP? Curious how you would value Levis's value in 14-man Superflex. He's my QB3 behind Lamar, Daniels, and Darnold and other backups. Look, in 14 teams, if there's a quarterback that even has a pulse, like, and by pulse, I mean he's a quarterback 2 on his own team, but there's like, it's a good offense, or the quarterback 1 is on its last leg, or anything, like, they have great value. So if somebody wanted Will Levis from me in a 14-team league, here's what I would say. I would say you have to come to me with at least a first in a 14-team league. At least a first. I probably am going to try to get a little bit more even, but you have to come with at least a first. And I know in normal Superflex 12-teamers that you might get laughed at, although I still value quarterbacks pretty highly there. But you might get laughed at. But look, any starting quarterback with a pulse is worth something. Any starter that doesn't look like they're going to either get replaced tomorrow or retire tomorrow is worth a first in 14-teamers. So I would say at least a first. Brendan Shelley saying Rashee Rice isn't dead despite his driving habits. That's funny. Brandon says, would you trade Ladd McConkey, a 26 first and 26 second for Nico Collins? Seems like a lot, but it'd give me St. Brown, Devonta, Rice, Kirk, and potentially Collins. That seems like too much. That seems like too much for me. I like Ladd quite a bit. Ladd in a second, I could see. Maybe even Ladd in a first, but Ladd first and a second, I think is just too much for me to give up. Yeah, I think that's just and it's partly because I think Ladd is going to just be peppered with targets. He's going to have so many opportunities, and then you're going to be able to trade him for a lot more. So you might be able to then, if you like Nico quite a bit, trade him for Ladd straight up at some point. Vinny, what's good, buddy? Also, what do you think of Shaheed for Mostert? Had running back depth. I think that's a great need-based trade. Do you need receiver? Do you need running back? Take whatever side you need. So I think that's a fantastic deal. All right. Speaking of new features for the Nerd Herd, I'm signed up for a UX interview next week. I don't have a Dynasty Nerd subscription yet. So how and when do I look at the new features? That's a good question. I am not doing those interviews. I'm guessing that's Nick. You might not be able to. I would reach out to the customer support and figure out if you need to be signed up in order to see some of that. Brandon Shelley saying, hindsight-o-meter. Who is your hold for now, but unload if they show any value this season? So I'm guessing the hindsight-o-meter, yes, there is some of that for the Nerd Score Plus that is hindsight. But overall, we couldn't change the competition level. It is what it is. And it's not a subjective ranking. It's objective based on their actual strength of schedule. Same thing with production. We have a model for that. Draft capital, can't change that. The only thing that's subjective in that process would be landing spot. And so that's the only part of that when we went back that was a little bit subjective. Who is your hold for now but unload if they show any value guy this season? That's a great question. Running backs tend to be towards the top of this list typically. So most running backs, if I'm not a contender, would fall into this category. But looking at specific guys that fit this category well, I think Bryce Young is a great one. I do not believe in Bryce Young long term, but I think unload for what you can get when he shows some signs. Stephon Diggs is probably a big one because right now people aren't sure on him, but my guess is they're going to want to try to get him involved those first couple weeks, and they're going to want to get him in a spot where he's feeling good about the offense, good about the team. So after week 1 or 2, I would love to flip him, get a little bit younger at the position because I think long term, we'll see. I'm trying to think, is there anybody else that I would really love to have on that list of guys? Njoku, I don't necessarily believe in him with Deshaun Watson. I just don't think they have the chemistry, and I think that's a big part at the tight end position. Probably him as well. 12-team Superflex tight end premium. What can I sell Russell Wilson for? Want to sell now before he expires. You're not going to get much. You're probably only going to be able to get a second. I'm fine with that in a 12-teamer. I always want to get a first for quarterbacks, but you're just not going to for him. It's just not realistic. And I'm fine getting a second for Russell Wilson. Kobe in the clutch. What's good, homie? Which side would you want on this deal that just went down? 12-team, 1 QB, start 8. Javonte in a late 3rd, or Zamir in an early 4th? I'm definitely taking the Javonte side. I would have Javonte over Zamir as is, but then you add in the better pick side of it. Definitely give me Javonte. Absolutely. A bit of revisionist history here. That's the second time that term's been brought up. Look at us today, looking at the past. All right. A bit of revisionist history. on Nix being named a starter. Should we have drafted Bo Nix earlier in our rookie drafts? Look, I am not the biggest Bo Nix fan, but you have to admit he looked good in the preseason, him already being named the starter, although he's an older quarterback, so you would kind of hope he would have. But I'm okay moving him up a little bit. I would have been willing to take him ahead of... Yeah, I'm tired today. I apologize, guys. I would have been willing to take him ahead of Pearsall, Leggett. I don't know about Trey Benson. I would have been willing to take him ahead of probably Keon Coleman, probably Brian Thomas. I don't think I could get him ahead of the Ladd, Brooks, Worthy range. I think that tier, he's still behind that tier for me, but probably just right behind that tier. Curtains for Irv Smith. Yeah. Pour one out for him. He was a homie. I liked him. I hoped for the best for him. But realistically, like, he just didn't have the juice. He didn't have the juice needed to be able to get it done. Didn't have the production. So, yes. It's sad, but it's the end of times for Irv Smith Jr. Steve F., what's good, homie? What was just about to ask the same question for Russ. Totally get you there. Birdman. Cut season. Keep one for Taxi. Anais Smith, Trey Tucker, or A.T. Perry. Tucker or Perry didn't hit that 500-yard mark. Yes, we know if they do not hit that 500-yard mark as a rookie, the odds of them being a truly fantasy relevant player, which means they would have 2 seasons of at least wide receiver 2 production. I think that's correct. I'll have to go back and look. But multiple seasons where they're relevant. No, it would be at least 1 wide receiver 1 and 1 wide receiver 2, I think is what it actually is. But still, either way, I would lean Anais Smith. Give me a guy that has not yet not hit the threshold so far. So yeah, give me Anais Smith there, but very close. Very close between those 2 players, but I will go with Anais Smith on that one. All right. Feel free to get those questions in here. I do need to. This is like super unprofessional. I realized I forgot to get a water, and I did not get a water before I started this. So talk amongst yourselves. This is like that moment where the teacher's like, I got to step out and speak to the principal. Talk amongst yourselves real quick. I'll be right back. Give me like 30 seconds because I'm dying. It's hot in this room. I got to shut the door so it's not too loud out there. Give me 30 seconds. I promise I'll be back. I promise. I'm not lying. All right, I'm back. I'm back. I promise. I'm back. I told you I would be back. I do wear pants. It's true. You guys are great. All right. Brandon says, is Samaje Perine worth a roster spot? I can see him as the third down back, but can't see him spelling Pacheco that much. I can't help think Steele will get a fair amount of snaps down the line. I think he's worth rostering just to kind of see, like, is there a possibility of the old Jerick McKinnon type role there or no? It would always depend on who you're going to cut, but I'd be willing to hold on to him for now. He's going to go, dude, I could use a nap. I would love to take a nap. I do, in fact, wear pants while podcasting. That would have been real awkward. What if I was just butt naked? Just wear a shirt, just butt naked while I do a show. Never know. 2021 running backs aren't showing up. Let me see. 2021 running backs. They are not. I remember Jared said there was something weird about the 21 class at running backs. That'll be fixed very soon. I did come back. I promised. And I'm a man of my word. So if you guys didn't see it before, I'm going to show it again here. This is the Nerd Score Plus that is now on the website. And so this is taking all of what we do for the Nerd Score, which is basically just a film grade. It's just a film grade. But we end up, I'm not actually sharing it. Hold on. Just realized I didn't actually share it. There we go. It's a film grade, but it's pre-draft, so we don't let anything influence that. But then you have the Nerd Score Plus, which does, in fact, factor in draft capital, landing spot, opportunity, things like that. So this is something that you could potentially draft from. So here's like the Nerd Score, all right? And you can see like Nerd Score Plus does slightly change the rankings. So Corum actually jumps to third here. Lloyd goes from second to fourth. Jalen Wright is fifth. Ray Davis, Bucky Irving. Like, if you use this as your rankings, you're probably feeling pretty decent overall. So you could use this, and same thing with wide receiver, obviously. Same thing here. If we organize it by Nerd Score Plus, same order at the top, but then switches up Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey, switches up some of these guys a little bit. Adonai Mitchell falls a little bit. Xavier Legette jumps a little bit because of his draft capital and his production last year. So, yeah, you could take these and simply just draft straight from these, and they would be a pretty accurate depiction of where you should go. Because it's still based, its core, like over half, is still our film grade. So it's not like we're completely removing that. Like, that's still at the core of this. Our film grade, our Nerd Score, is still the core of this. The biggest percentage is still from that. But it just factors in enough other little things so that way you could use that. Now, we wanted to get this out sooner. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get it out any sooner than now. But in the future, this is going to come out right after the NFL draft, like within a few days of the NFL draft. Nerd Score Plus will come out, so you can use it then in your rookie startup drafts. Oh, I needed that water so bad. Tastes so good. So good. All right. Let me take this. We're going to stop the screen now. All right. Finally got my first share of Bijan. Trade away Saquon, DJ Moore, and a late second. DJ Moore was my wide receiver 5. If you're trading from that kind of depth, I think that's a great move to be able to get an elite guy that's going to be around a lot longer than Bijan will be. So I have no issue with that. And the fact, like, that was a sneaky, humble brag there that DJ Moore, your wide receiver 5, that's pretty good. Pretty freaking good. I've watched the threshold video like 5 times now, and I can now constantly look at a wide receiver yards and running back receptions. Dude, that some of those numbers that we did this summer, looking into chances of repeating and thresholds and things like that, like, I think that was some of the best content that we did. I know it's dense and it like takes some time to get through it, but if you can digest it well and implement it, it will save you from missing on so many players, like so many players. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic thing. So here's the other thing I wanted to do today. I want to have a little fun. This is the last week before we are going to be talking all things regular season next week, because it'll be the day of the first game, which will be so fun. I can't wait. So want to do a couple fun questions, a little audience participation today. So if you were an NFL GM and you could start your team with any quarterback not named Patrick Mahomes, who would you choose to start your franchise with? Who would you like, where they're at right now, not in their prime, where they're at right now? Anyone not named Mahomes, who would you take? All right. So think about that. I'm going to answer a few more of these questions while we're here. GM question. Anyone's thoughts? Went to three divisions from two. Would you rather play each team one time and have 8 division games, but don't play all divisions, or 2 times or 2 games against each division opponent and then only 4 non-division games? I would rather play all the teams. I think I would want to do all the teams. Steven Jr. says 10-team super flex, non-tight end premium, start 10 contender. We aren't holding guys like Tez Walker, Bellinger, Tillman. I can never pronounce his name. Ayavis. I can never get it right. Or Wicks, right? It's deep rosters in this 10 team, but not sure if I'll be able to capitalize. Wicks is the only one I would consider in that group. Everybody else I'm good with moving on from if you don't have deep benches. Or deep enough. All right. So here's our answer so far. We've got CJ Stroud for Steven. Brandon says Love or Stroud. If contract is a consideration, I'll go Purdy. Josh Allen for Bradley. Zach saying it's got to be Stroud for me. Birdman, Allen barely over Stroud. Lamar for Charles. So we've got a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions on this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different quarterbacks that have been named. Would anybody be willing to be risky and do Caleb Williams? I think Stroud is the first choice for me as well. But it would be interesting. The hype is there. He looks really good. Andrew saying it's got to be Love or Lamar. Would you be confident with Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, and Swift as your top 3 as a contender in Superflex Dynasty? Only if I was baller everywhere else. Like if I'm in Superflex and I'm starting Josh Allen and Jordan Love, and at wide receiver, I've got CeeDee and Puka Nacua and DJ Moore and Cooper Kupp. And then at tight end, I'm trotting out Travis Kelce. Then yeah, like I think I would be good with that running back core if I look at every other single position that I have on the field or on my roster and be like, yeah, I'm good. Birdman says I cannot root for the Bears in any capacity. Steven said I go Daniels before Caleb. Brand saying perhaps I'd consider it. I would think about it. Okay. All right. Here's the next question. If you could only choose one, what's up, Dylan? What's good, homie? If you could only choose one, would you rather have an elite coach, an elite quarterback, or an elite GM? And the other 2 positions were average, like very mid. Which one would you think is the most important to you to have elite? Elite. I'm really curious about this one. I just had a bunch of fun questions that I wrote down that I thought would be interesting questions to hear perspectives on, other than just my own brain. I'll tell you guys mine in a second, but I don't want to. I don't want to influence your opinions at all. Stephen Jr. saying, "Give me an Antonio Pierce, Dan Campbell type of coach." Stephen Jr. Says, "Perhaps I didn't answer the question." Elite coach for Josh. Cameron saying elite coach. Packers fans have the answer. There you go. Elite coach. Stafford balled out as the best he could in Detroit, but was never recognized. Goes to an elite coach. Now everyone loves him. Brandon Shelley says GM. GM for Brandon. Dylan saying that's hard. It is. It's tough. Charles saying quarterback Brady and Mahomes made me say this. There you go. Dylan saying coach slightly over GM. Steven saying they did this on Unsportsmanlike. I've never heard of that, but it sounds like an interesting show. Head coach over quarterback and used Pitt over the last 30 years versus Green Bay. Okay. Look at what Urban Meyer did in 1 year. Elite coach. Elite coach. I go with GM. And it's very, very difficult. But I do believe in somewhat of the, like, if you're strong at the top, the rest will trickle down. So I think an elite GM that is amazing at finding talent, one, could put a lot of good pieces around that average quarterback. But two, I think he can help elevate your coach. Like he can, a good leader, just like a good coach would be for the players, a good GM, if they have that good relationship, that good cohesion, he can do those types of things that say, here's where my head coach is strong, here's where my coach is weak, and here's how I can go and support him. But, dude, such a tough call. Such a tough call. It's an ESPN show that's basically in the Mike and Mike slot. Okay. That makes sense. I can't tell you the last time that I listened to sports radio. I used to listen religiously, like every day almost. I would have some sort of like sports talk on, and I just don't anymore. I don't know if it's because now I do a lot of the talking. Maybe that's why, but yeah, I have not listened to sports talk radio in a really long time. But I used to love it. Guy named Tony Rizzo. He was an ESPN guy, but he was like our local ESPN guy. Listen to him every day. He was awesome. All right, next one here. If you are in the San Francisco situation where you have a cheap quarterback, even if it's a rookie, the Bears with Caleb Williams, or you're not paying an exorbitant amount to a rookie quarterback. What's the next most important position for you to invest in? Say you can get an elite defensive end, an elite left tackle, an elite wide receiver, an elite corner. Who are you spending that money on? Who's the number one priority for you to spend that money on? Tackle, wide receiver, defensive end, corner. I'm guessing we're not going to get any running back. Probably kicker. Definitely should go kicker. I think those are probably the four that I would expect to hear. Would be tackles, wide receivers, defensive ends, corners. Trenches. You guys are going with the O-line. I get it. Everyone is going O-line here. Look at this. Left tackle, O-line. That's why I'm worried about Williams more than Ayuk. That's what spurred this question in my mind, honestly. Trenches. Sign Trent Williams. Tackle. I want 5 legit in the trenches. I get you guys. That would have been my answer as well. Corner would have probably been my next one. Having an elite shutdown corner is such an amazing thing in today's NFL to have. So I That would probably be my second one. But yeah, gotta build up that O-line, baby. Gotta build up that O-line. I didn't expect it to be unanimous, but I did expect to hear a lot of offensive line. A lot of offensive line there. Okay. Next question here. If you have an elite running back, so let's say Bijan Robinson blows up, right? Has multiple 15 plus 100-yard rushing seasons, and does good in the passing game, whatever. And he is going to potentially enter free agency. Are you willing to pay an exorbitant amount to a running back if he is elite? So let's say Bijan Robinson's asking for $20 million a year. Okay? 22 million a year. I don't know, something crazy. Would you be willing, if he is truly elite, putting up top numbers year after year, are you willing to pay him top tier money? Yes or no? Let's say you're middle of the road money wise as a GM. You're middle of the road. Brandon says, I'm worried about those D-backs falling off in a year or two. Okay. Birdman, I'm enjoying the questions. Thank you, sir. I love these kind of questions. If I'm a meh, LOL. I don't know what happened there, Brendan. I don't know. Steven asked, how much money do I have? Steven said, similar to fantasy football, if I'm a contender, then yes. Would I be willing to pay 20 mil? Charles saying no. Steven saying can't do it if I'm middle of the road. Morally, I would want to, but history says not to. If the guy is in my system already, that helps. I agree. If you've already had him and you know that he works with your guys, your system, your coaches, whatever, like, I feel way better about that than going out and getting a free agent running back. I feel way better about that than a free agent running back. Yeah. And I like how you put morally. That's a really interesting way. Because, like, I'm with you. A guy that balls out, like, you want to pay him right. Brandon says, I feel the same as Birdman, to be honest. It's a really tricky one. All right. Now for the most unhinged question. Okay. Most unhinged question. You guys ready for this one? If you could trade a player in your city for a player in a different sport of another city, would you be willing to do it? So let me give you a specific example. Okay. If you were to say, we're going to trade Pat Mahomes, maybe not Pat Mahomes. Let's go Josh Allen. No, they don't have another team there. Let's say Caleb Williams. There we go. Caleb Williams. We're going to trade Caleb Williams to the Minnesota Vikings. And Minnesota's going to trade Anthony Edwards to the Chicago Bulls. Would you be willing to do that if you thought the value was fair, or is it too crazy considering they're completely different sports? All right, it's truly unhinged question. Truly unhinged, will likely never happen. But would you be willing to do an intersport trade? And look, if you need, a guard to go with it, or a quarterback to go with it to, like, even it out, sure. Like, throw in J.J. McCarthy on the one side and throw in, I don't even know who the Bulls have at guard right now, but, like, would you be willing to do it? Unhinged, I know. Unhinged. Birdman says, trade Goff and give me a first-line center on the Red Wings. There you go. Steven said, I would trade Puka Nacua and get LeBron James and all the marking that comes with it to play tight end for me. There you go. That's hilarious. All right, with that, guys, that rounds out the show for me today. Real quick, I'll show it again just because I think it's an awesome feature and I'm excited to show it to you guys. So we have our Nerd Score Plus that just launched today, and you can get that on the website. Join the Nerd Herd. If you join the Nerd Herd, get 20% off right now using code 2024 season. You can see what Nerd Score Plus does for you when you add in all the draft capital, college production, landing spot, all of those types of things. So, guys, appreciate you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, watching. Had fun doing these hypotheticals, showing you the Nerd Score, answering questions, all of that kind of stuff. So, appreciate you guys, and have fun watching some real football tonight.